Hello, viewers. Welcome to Carved in Stone. I'm your host, Shawn Chabam, and on today's episode, I'm going to be giving you my Mount Rushmore of significant others on Seinfeld. Before I name names, let me tell you what I've decided to do here. I'm going to list one significant other on the mountain per main character. We're going to make something out of nothing today. Considering how many girlfriends and, for Elaine, boyfriends the four main characters went through over the years, I could probably do a mountain for each one of them individually. However, I just decided to do it this way. It actually made it easier for me, believe it or not, for Jerry at least. Jerry had so many girlfriends that narrowing it down to one, actually made it a lot simpler because of how I chose to choose his number one. It didn't really help me at all with George or Elaine because I think both of those are somewhat obvious. Kramer didn't have nearly the body count that the other three did, but when I was looking back on his girlfriends, he had more than I thought he did. The first woman who came to my mind, though, for him was the one I ended up picking for him. It's tough because once you start shrinking the list, well, shrinkage happens. Anyway, I'll reveal who I chose for each character and then list a handful of honorable mentions after that. We're going to start with Elaine. As I said, I think it's obvious for Elaine. That's right. It's David Puddy. This guy was hilarious. Puddy, played by Patrick Warburton, had such a great array of ways to make you laugh, just a really wide variety. It always made me chuckle when he would just stare forward at nothing, like this, with that dumb look on his face. One of the best reactions to that was Elaine on an airplane as he's just staring at the back of the seat in front of him. Elaine offers him something to read, and he just declines to continue to stare into the abyss. Like I said, that made me chuckle, but he could also have you rolling on the floor, like when he painted his face for the Devils Rangers game, rooting for the Devils in New York, because, support the team. Gotta let them know you're out there. This is the playoffs. When the Devils win, Puddy is celebrating in the street and nearly gets hit by a car. He screams in a priest's face that, "We're the Devils!" I would probably list Puddy as my second favorite recurring Seinfeld character, falling short only to Newman. His "that's right" catchphrase after someone tried verifying something he said that was usually absurd was fantastic. He and Elaine broke up over and over again during the course of the show, which was always done in a humorous way, like when she got rid of him for being a face painter. My personal favorite was the time Elaine broke up with him for The Wiz, a man she was mesmerized by because she was recalling a commercial he had been on years ago where his eyes shined and a harp played. When she realizes she fell for him by accident, she tries to crawl back to Puddy, who says, "I don't know. What if we're out somewhere and you see the Maytag repairman?" He was such a great character, and I didn't even really have to think about who I'd pick for Elaine. Puddy all the way. Puddy was the most sponge-worthy, mountain-worthy boyfriend Elaine ever had. She also had some decent honorable mentions. Joel Rifkin, who shared his name with a notorious serial killer, was a good one. Elaine pleads with him to change his name to OJ. That was before, Keith Hernandez, who was instrumental in the famous One Magic Loogie scene, was probably my favorite baseball player playing himself they had on the show. They did have others. Derek Jeter comes to mind. Hey, we won the World Series in 6 games. We're getting off topic here, though, pulling a Banya. One more honorable mention for Elaine's boyfriends, the Mimbo, Tony. Elaine's obsession with his face and George's infatuation with Tony's being in general was classic. Let's step off Elaine now and get into the George Costanza bubble. To me, no doubt, the significant other for George is his one-time fiancée, Susan. Although Susan didn't fit in with the main cast, and apparently in real life the cast wasn't too fond of her either, I thought the Susan character was great. Look, Jason Alexander, who played George, probably forgot more about acting this morning than I've known in my entire life. Okay, I admit that. I'm not denying that. He talked about Heidi Swedberg, the actress who played Susan, not having the same comedic timing as the rest of the cast and throwing off the dynamic of the show. The thing is, I thought that was the point. She wasn't anything like the rest of them. I thought that was the joke. She didn't fit in, and I felt it made for great comedy. George and Susan also broke up time and time again for various reasons until they finally got engaged while George was thinking about his future in a move I don't think anybody saw coming. Let me step back here for a second to something I said a minute ago. Alexander has clarified that as a person, he liked Heidi Swedberg. He simply didn't like her comedy style. Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Elaine, couldn't stand the character. She once said during a table read, "Don't you want to just kill her?" And that was actually the catalyst to kill Susan off with toxic envelopes she was licking for the wedding. Now, let's get to honorable mentions for Georgie Boy. I'm not going to count Marissa Tomei. I wouldn't consider her a girlfriend, although that was a good episode. I thought the episode where he dated the inmate Celia was hysterical. George loves that she can't pop in unexpectedly, and then he tries to sabotage her parole to keep her in jail so he knows where she is at all times. Anna was another good one. When George is at Elaine's work party, Elaine busts out her dance moves, much to the amusement of her staff. Elaine seems to lose respect from her staff, and she gets it in her head that George was behind it. She tells Anna George's bad news, which only attracts Anna to George. He starts playing a bad boy to keep up his image, but he has no clue what he's doing because he's not a bad boy. I thought it was great when he decided to convert to Latvian Orthodox for Sasha. George's parents are enraged when they find out he cheats on his conversion test. And it's all for naught anyway, because after he passes the test, Sasha moves to Latvia to live with family. Denise, who, even though we never see it, is bald, is another honorable mention. Even though we don't see the actress a ton, her character led the show into some funny moments. This is the episode where George has a hairpiece. Elaine throws it out the window. George decides to keep dating Denise, the bald woman, as he calls her. Says that she has a nice skull, and then she dumps him. And finally, Audrey. George, for once, seems to actually genuinely like somebody. He's dating Audrey despite her having a very large nose, which does bother him, but he's still with her. When Audrey mentions that New York City is intimidating because there are so many beautiful women, Kramer says, "You're just as pretty as any of them. You just need a nose job." This prompts Audrey to go under the knife. She gets butchered. George is appalled. They break up. Her nose gets fixed. Thanks to a jacket, Kramer winds up with her. Believe it or not, we're done with George. And that is making me thirsty for a little Kramer. Like I said at the beginning, Kramer didn't have as many companions as the other three, but it was more than I realized when I started looking into it to make sure I didn't forget anyone. But the first one who came to my mind is the one on the mountain for Kramer. Because of Kramer's quirkiness, it's hard to find a woman who suits him just right, and I thought this one did. For me, it was by far and away Olive. Olive was a cashier at the coffee shop with extraordinarily long fingernails. Kramer has an itch on his back that he can't satisfy in any way other than using Jerry's spatula. When Elaine fuses to scratch his back at Monk's, Olive offers to do the honors. This is the same episode, you'll know it if you're a Seinfeld fan, where there's a mannequin that looks just like Elaine, George has pants that swoosh, and Jerry's girlfriend won't taste apple pie. This is also the episode where Poppy doesn't wash his hands after using the restroom. But back to the mountain selection, Kramer is smitten with Olive's ability to please him with her nails. When Kramer loses his itch, he fakes that he's still happy for a while. Instead of being straight with her, Kramer tells Olive that he's dating Elaine and proves it by making out with the Elaine mannequin in Jerry's car. Jerry and Elaine had stolen it from the store earlier in the episode. This implies Kramer was only with Olive for her fingernails, proving he could be just as superficial as the rest of them. I loved how they used to find ways to connect each character's individual adventures to one another at the end of the shows. Some honorable mentions for Kramer. Connie, who was cheating on her mobster boyfriend with Kramer, and in classic Kramer fashion, he was trying new sleep methods that would cause him to fall asleep randomly, and he passed out on Connie during a makeout session. She thinks he's dead and calls friends so that they can get rid of the body and keep it quiet from her boyfriend. The friends throw him into the Hudson River in a sack, so when Kramer comes to, he tells police Connie tried to kill him. Then there was Toby, who was quite annoying, but she gets a mention because after she heckled Jerry at a comedy show, he went to her workplace to heckle her, and it led to the incredible pinky toe Kramer monologue. There was the low talker Leslie, who apparently only Kramer could hear in the puffy shirt episode, and probably second only to Olive, Tina, who was Elaine's roommate, which led to Kramer seeing Elaine naked. How can I go on? Well, I have to. Now for Jerry. This is a tough one because it seemed like he had a new girlfriend with almost every episode. The woman I chose, I selected not because she was herself funny, but because of how others around her acted. My pick for Jerry is Ellen. Played by Christine Taylor, Ellen appears to have it all. She's beautiful, she's smart, she's thoughtful, but everyone around Jerry either implies or flat out tells him that Ellen is a loser and Jerry is completely dumbfounded. That AI of Christine Taylor is horrible, by the way. Sorry about that. Jerry does find out their first date is on Ellen's birthday, which he thinks is weird. I don't. Who cares? After a certain age, birthdays aren't that big of a deal. Friends of hers tell him it's so sweet of him to take her out, and she really needs this. He asks if she's coming off a bad breakup, and they say no without an explanation of why she needs it. George thinks Ellen must be the loser of the group, which I don't think they ever say, but maybe is why she's not celebrating her birthday with friends because she's a loser. Jerry starts looking for flaws, asking if she is using a fork that fell on the floor, and if she's wearing the same outfit back-to-back days. Of course, neither of which had occurred. He's just looking for a problem. He can't figure out a thing wrong with her, probably because there's nothing wrong with her. She seems perfect. When Jerry announces he's going to Vermont with Ellen for the weekend, George and Jerry stage an intervention. They tell him Ellen is a loser, but they never explain why. Jerry says it's like the episode of The Twilight Zone where the guy wakes up and everybody around him is different, but he's the same. And then he goes on to say that every episode was like that. Finally, Jerry flies his parents in from Florida to New York City just to meet Ellen. they are just as infatuated with Ellen as Jerry is. And that's when Jerry comes around to doubting Ellen. His mother says Ellen is 10 times better than Amber, and Jerry wonders aloud if Amber is back from Vegas. We never see an on-screen breakup, but we're left to assume that because of how much his parents like her, Jerry decides to call it quits with Ellen. Now, like I said, I could probably do a mountain of significant others per character. Honorable mentions for Jerry are tough just because there are so many of them and they're spectacular. And you know who was real and spectacular? Sidra. Jackie Chiles got to find this out firsthand. I'm also going with Marla the Virgin, Gwen the Two-Face, Nikki, who is so lovely that she gets Jerry out of a speeding ticket where he admits he was going well over 100 miles per hour. She's stolen away by a love interest of Elaine's. Even though I don't remember a ton about that character, Donna Chang, who was not Chinese, led to a laugh riot when her phone line crossed with Jerry's, and Donna informs Jerry when they meet that the family name wasn't always Chang, it used to be Changstein. And finally, the last honorable mention for Jerry, Marley, the deaf lineswoman who gets George into a humiliating situation when she lip reads sweep as sleep. This podcast is not endorsed by, affiliated with, or sponsored by any of the actors or actresses named, Seinfeld, NBC, or any of their properties. Character images are sourced from Wikimedia Commons under appropriate licensing. Well, I hope you had fun going down the Seinfeld rabbit hole with me. To recap, my Mount Rushmore of Seinfeld's significant others: David Puddy for Elaine, Susan for George, Olive for Kramer, and Ellen for Jerry. As always, thank you for joining me. If there's anybody who I didn't mention who you really enjoyed, let me know. I'm sure there are, because like I said, there were so many significant others in this show. It would be really tough to list them all in one episode. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Go Birds!